Birds aren't real? Are they making fun of me? Whatever floats your boat, friend. Okay. Maybe not the best word choice. Look, I'm not here to judge. Just get some clarity on the details for that thing you wanted done. Especially the whole bizarre aardvark accident cover story. It's not without precedent. I mean, what kind of communists do they have working at the Wall Street Journal these days, anyways? Birds aren't real. Grab a gentleman a drink, they will. Gilligan, my boy, fetch me a martini drier than Lovey's hoochie. What do you have, Mr. Beetle? Okay, now, looks like someone could use a copy of Reservoir Dogs dropped on their well-appointed hut. Vinyl, of course. We agreed. No names.
You idiot! I'm not a boy or a bartender. I'm a disgruntled chihuahua, not a Gilligan. I don't even play golf.
Don't play golf? That's heresy, man. And perhaps why you're a disgruntled member of the waitstaff. Ask your club about a tea time.
You blithering idiot! Do I look like I belong to a country club?
Fair point. I voted to keep you out of mine.
Oh, well, I think we'll need to pray about that. And ask your father.
Shut up, Marilyn! The Mark Roman Empire. Also, a podcast. This week's episode, Oscar Armando. It's showtime!
Episode 41, dated the 22nd of July 2020, even though I am recording this on the 23rd. Hey, if you let it slide with Bill Burr from time to time, why not me? Isn't that why Bill Burr said, and I quote, I fucking love that guy. Nah, I mean, he did say to my character, Lieutenant Frank, but that's still a part of me. I am Mark Roman, the Mark Roman. I am mentally ill. How can I help? Yeah, I hear the news too. I'm kind of over it as well. We all know it's getting worse. The numbers keep going up, especially here in my golden state of California, my home. And we are to blame. Yep, all of us. All of us. We're all in this. We all got some culpability. Yeah, it's kind of frustrating, it's upsetting, it's exhausting. Oh, so how about something completely different? I got to talk to my son Connor. Well, now I guess it was a couple weeks ago. You know, as the fun absentee father, you know, you tend to look at intact families with wonder, almost as if you were watching Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. It's such a wonderful fantasy. Mesmerizing, really. So I had one of my weekly Facebook video chats, which kind of drifted into a week and a half, 2 weeks maybe. I'll message Connor, hey, when's good to chat? Next day, it's in the evening, we chat. Connor's in the midst of an online strategy game with his friends, so, whatever. Doesn't take much justification for me to accept that. I'm just grateful to share another moment with my son. A son I hope gets to actually live his best life. That phrase that makes me feel complicit in the Ryan Seacrest Kardashian cops Trump reality TV cancer that has been eroding our society long before the COVID. And yet my best life was never exactly a growing concern. Or any kind of concern, really, growing up in the Dick and Marilyn show. Unless you could force a large, curious octopus into a tiny square that was our born-again Christian fear and loathing in the Appalachia that was our slice of Auburn, California. Yeah. By the way, I know how to say loathing. Fear and loathing. All right. Look, I'm not on stage as much these days. It's COVID rusty, guys. I know. I'm just trying to survive here. Just like I know you are. We're all in this together. I get it. It's just instead of doing my normal acting and performing, I'm like doing all this other stuff, which is weird. It's like my Aunt Susan just apologized for being so busy, oddly, during the pandemic. She's like, "This, how is this possible?" And I'm like, I get it. I get it. Anyway, the important thing is that we're going to talk now about Connor again, my boy, my son. Connor seems to be living a life dictated not by parents or others, but by his own interests. And I'm grateful for him. Also curious, what's that like? And during our conversation, which I find satisfying, even though he's clearly distracted by his strategy game. But hey, Connor's doing what he wants to do. And that's what I want for him. So I'm happy with that. Not all recovery is from alcohol or substances. Just ask the sister mother from Do the Right Thing. More about that in a minute. Yeah, they're doing construction. Yeah, on my building. You're welcome. Now, during the pandemic, as the struggle with PTSDs and depression, in short, mental illness, when it becomes more common, is it becoming a less frightening admission? Perhaps. I compare my own mental breakdowns with what we see in the news. Let's see. Now, I'm not brandishing assault weapons outside my gated McMansion. I'm not abusing essential workers in grocery stores, shouting about my rights to not wear a mask as I childishly toss groceries from my cart to the floor. I haven't done that yet. No. Let's see. Punctuating my solid arguments with what? Gravity? Logic? Sober reflection? Wisdom? No, my breakdowns historically were with significant others. Yeah, people as broken as me. Both of us deluded into believing that a relationship solves individual problems or is the escape. Someone would leave. Suddenly, my precarious financial existence became a struggle to survive a return to homelessness. Homelessness while a 6-foot-tall white dude. Certainly not the worst kind of homelessness. I kind of get it. But certainly not economic security or a foundation of robust mental health. In the last year, as I continue to recover from The Big Short, remember that back in 2007? I'm cobbling together new habits, new systems, new ways of living a life I get to produce, write, edit, direct, and act. It's not lost to me that my recurring loneliness is the flip side of a possibly rare coin. For the other side is the strength to live a life chosen. Is it strength? I don't know, guys. I'm just trying to get through my day, just like I know you are. So how am I doing that? I've been watching some cinema. Yeah. So, by the way, blanket plot spoiler alert here. I'm going to discuss a few films. They've all been out for a while, in some cases like decades, perhaps even an entire generation. So you really, I'm letting you know, if you haven't seen the film yet and you don't want a plot spoiler, then I think you know what to do. I trust you. You're an adult, right? Even if you're not, I trust you to do the right thing. You hear the movie name and go, "Oh, I gotta go watch the movie now. Then I'll get back to the podcast." Otherwise, like these films have been out for a while, guys. So don't complain because you didn't know that in Point Break there's no Donald Trump mask. Okay, plot spoiler: no Donald Trump mask in the Point Break. Yeah, Point Break. Got to see that, man. That was pretty good. So I get a little hydrated here. That was my metal straw in my my vaso de agua. Point Break was released the year I experienced my original expelled student editor trauma. Yeah, I believe that was 1991, I want to say. Keanu Reeves, who's fresh off of Bill and Ted. Yes, their excellent adventure involving George Carlin. Thanks for asking. Yeah, Keanu Reeves, fresh up Bill and Ted. He was exploring what would later become Neo in the Matrix and John Wick. He's young, refreshing as a Hawaiian breeze full of exotic promise. And then there's the allure to me of Southern California and Los Angeles. And when I first saw the film, I was living in Michigan and missing my home state of California. So it was like, you know, everything I ever watched that involved LA would just draw me. It was like this siren song, a whisper saying, "This is home. This is where you belong. Why aren't you here yet?" So, and that was, I got to be honest, for me, in my experience watching Point Break, that was part of it. The beach, the surf, the buzz of activity, the sunshine, the way of life. So, I enjoyed watching it. It also involves that guy from the film Ghost. You know who I'm talking about. Yeah, he was pretty sexy in it too. So, Gladiator. Oh yeah, such a well-crafted movie. I take that for granted. I feel like I know every scene now. The soundtrack is literally my life soundtrack. I listened to it so many times on my phone in the background, going about my day full of activities. But wow, I recommend it. I recommend it. You just got to visit it every so often. And the tension between a Rome ruled by Caesars and Rome the Republic, that tension between strong men and democratic institutions, it kind of hangs there after you watch the film. You ask yourself, what exactly has changed since the first few hundreds of years of our common era? Yeah, which was like 1800 years ago. Okay. So, are you stuck? Why stick in the past? Let's go to the future. Let's go back to the future, because that's really what Blade Runner is all about in a lot of ways. Is that Greg Proops? Seriously, the chase scene before the awesome stunt actress crashes through all the glass. The replicant that Deckard takes down. Yeah, spoiler alert. Yeah. Angry Harry, before he was more of a sullen Harry. Now he's Angry Harry. Angry senior citizen Harry. But back when he was young, sullen Harrison Ford, and he was chasing down replicants and being, you know, noir film moody, as we're so grateful to him for being. And then gets saved by a replicant who then delivers these like Shakespearean lines that apparently was that Rutger Hauer? Yeah. Did I read somewhere that apparently Rutger Hauer like went totally off script and wrote that whole soliloquy himself? I feel like I saw that in one of some documentary or something. Is that true? I want to believe that's true, because Rutger Hauer is amazing. And even if he didn't write those words, the delivery, like tears and rain. Wow. But seriously, is that Greg Proops? I'm pretty sure the guy in the glasses and kind of the high collar whatever and the hair going on, I swear to God, that was Greg Proops in that market scene when Deckard's chasing after the amazing, spectacular stunt lady. I don't know. Is it Greg? I guess that's when we're going to remain one of the eternal mysteries. Of course, then I saw the a little prequels too, and then including Blade Runner 2049. What's amazing is that Ryan Gosling is a complete nobody. Again, huge spoiler alert, but as a nobody, he made all the difference because he thought he was somebody, making him more than merely nobody. What is real? I mean, I could be fucking around with you. I could be fucking with you. Or that could be a legitimate existential question. Or all of the above. I don't know. I know. Do the Right Thing. Great film. Wow. And if you're checking out, I watched it on the new Peacock. Yeah, because I thought I'd get to see all the Law and Order, but even if you get the premium, you can't even watch the first, I think, 13 seasons of Law and Order on Peacock. Yeah, they start in at like season 13. So just so you know. So Do the Right Thing came out in 1989, the year I graduated from high school, claimed my Eagle Scout award, and went to college in Michigan. Do the Right Thing. That pretty much put Spike Lee on the map. Great fucking film. I mean, it's Shakespearean epic level. It's just a joy to watch on so many levels. But even at the most basic of, I want to see some cinema, I want to be entertained. It's fucking entertaining. You get drawn into this world, this neighborhood. Bed-Stuy, it's phenomenal. I mean, there's so much to unpack here. I'm not even going to attempt to pretend to try. I'm just grateful I got to do a pass-through again on it. And it's up there with fucking Gladiator. You got to watch this every so often. It's part of the American cinematic. This even more than Gladiator. Okay? Because Gladiator, I mean, let's be honest. Russell Crowe. He's from Australia, okay? And Ridley Scott, I feel like, is from Britain. Isn't he? Is Ridley Scott American? I don't know, maybe. I feel like he's British. I just feel like, I'm a huge Anglophile, all right? And I embrace diversity. So, it's okay if you're a white person from an island. I'm cool with that. Speaking of that, Do the Right Thing. Radio Raheem. Oh my God. Was such a great silent character. But then he dies by a standing police chokehold 31 years before George Floyd, not a fictional character. Radio Raheem, fictional. George Floyd, real guy in real life. George Floyd, 31 years later, dies by casual crouching police choke Neil, hidden tax evader. Oh, breaking news. Yeah, check it out. Didn't even remember, though? George Floyd. Yeah. George Floyd. Don't forget George Floyd. And this happened 31 years after Do the Right Thing. So maybe if more of us, including myself, had watched Do the Right Thing more often and thought more about it and talked more about it and asked more questions about it, maybe, I don't know. It's also interesting. Look at the gentrification that is explored in Do the Right Thing. And look at all the Black business owners. Yeah, count them out. List them out. Who are all the Black business owners again and Do the Right Thing? Now, take your time. I want you to collect your thoughts. Do you need to use a lifeline? Okay. Here are the Black business owners I noticed in Do the Right Thing. There's Sal. Oh, wait, he's not Black. He's Italian. Yeah. And then there's the Korean grocery store. Again, even though he claims, I like you. That didn't go over too well. Yeah. Most of the Black folks that Do the Right Thing did not agree that the Korean store owner was also Black. So there were no black business owners in Do the Right Thing. So you've got a black neighborhood, and you got a bunch of people who are not black that just either grew up in the neighborhood or parachute into the neighborhood and take advantage of, pricing. And, how is that not still slavery? I'm a 6 foot tall white dude. I'm looking at this 31 years later, and so many things we have yet to learn. We've had 31 years. I don't know. Samuel L. Jackson, holy shit, as the young radio DJ. Wow. Sorry, guys, I'm crashing into the mic here. By the way, guys, thanks for rolling with me. I'm gradually learning. I've not gone to film school. I've not gone to voice acting school. I did go to comedy college to do that. But I'm still learning how to use the mics and everything. So it is what it is, okay? If you can deal with the pandemic, Zoom calls, realize that I'm gradually building up my thing. So you'll hear audio issues. I'm going to discuss that a little bit later too. But I'm going to crash. I'm trying to figure it out, guys. So bear with me. You've been bearing with me, and I see you doing that. I appreciate that. Thank you. The mayor and Do the Right Thing. Look at this. You got a guy that we so easily dismiss as the drunk. And there used to be a time in comedy and cinema here in America where, the drunk, it was like a fucking comedy act. Like Dean Martin tapped into that. Foster Brooks was famous for that. And then we had Mothers Against Drunk Driving and 12-step programs. Now realizing, okay, well, maybe alcoholism isn't so funny after all. It still is. But look at the character of the mayor. It's so easy, and we dismiss the drunk because it's like, well, it's your problem. You're the one who went and blew your money. You got drunk, and now you're not able to show up for your job. You're not responsible, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. No one bothers to ask, well, why is the mayor drunk? And there's some hints of it. And yet the mayor does a heroic thing in a heroic moment, which doesn't go unnoticed by the sister mother who, you want to see a post-traumatic stress disorder? I mean, there's a lot in the neighborhood, but look at sister mother, and she has a moment. The mayor shows up. That's PTSD, which I have. So I relate, sister mother. Not on the left. I haven't been in your shoes at all, but you clearly have PTSD. I do too. We're both human beings. We both bleed the same red blood. Again, guys, wow, so much to unpack. Such a great film, Do the Right Things. Thank you, Spike Lee. And I'm like halfway through his latest film, the Vietnam one, on Netflix. But just, oh my God, such a good film. I actually saw Spike Lee do a Q&A. And I want to say somewhere in the Beverly something, or I was in Beverly. I don't know what it was. It was a screening, one of those for your consideration things a couple years ago. It was the Adam Driver film, where Adam Driver infiltrates the KKK. That's a great fucking film. What's that name of it? Klansman? Black Klansman. Oh, that was a great film too. Holy shit, such a good film. Gotta love Spike Lee. Appreciate you, Spike. Thanks for doing what you do. Speaking of filmmakers, this guy's a little yaggy. Spike Lee, that's the name. This guy, you're going to get to know this guy. Film and TV producer, director, writer. Oscar Armando is on the pod today. Oscar and I connected recently via a community organization, and we discussed that as well as Hollywood, TV, and film. More about Oscar in a minute. All right, guys, about last week, look, I did the first 21 episodes of this podcast from the fall of 2018 to the spring of 2019. There might have been a hiatus or two on the way to episode 21. It was the first, chunk of 20. And then, took some time off for financial concerns. Remember, I'm still recovering from The Big Short. Yeah, that's like 12, 13 years ago. But we started the podcast back up here this year, just before the pandemic got real back in early March. And we got to episode 40. So apparently I can do this pod in bursts of 20 or so. Last week, I needed a minute. All right. I need to catch my breath. I just, shake my head, reclaim my groovy stuff. I really don't have to explain right now because you get it. We all get it. But, I would have had to have explained this back in February or, a February in the future. In Blade Runner times. Oh, we'll forget the pandemic. Don't you worry. Stay tuned. It'll happen. Remember 9/11? Remember The Big Short? Remember the Cold War? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I've got one more interview in the bag, which we'll likely hear next week. After that, what's the prognosis for more... Jesus, on a cracker. What is the prognosis for more podcasts? I don't know. Maybe I'll take an August recess. Maybe Congress will decide to do the right thing. And instead of losing my shit, scrambling to replace all my income, I can have a few more months to financially recover from the pandemic. Maybe. I don't know. I do miss entertaining, guys. I miss it a lot. Oh, but I got an availability check for a theatrical photo shoot next week. Yeah. And if they book me, I'm not booked yet, but if they did, it would be my first paid acting gig since the pandemic, which also means, as I stay hydrated, everyone, which also means if booked, production will pay for me to get COVID tested, a few days early in the week before the actual day we shoot. So that'll be an interesting experience. But we'll see. I don't know. We shall see. Imperial Happy Hour, that will come back. That's where I do the live streaming, sometimes some drinking, always drinking. Sometimes it's a festive beverage. Sometimes it's just, like what I'm drinking right now, spa water, homegrown spa water, which I've got folks, both friends and folks who've been on the podcast who are sober, they're in recovery. So, I want to have a big tent with the happy hour. You don't have to just be drinking alcohol. I know folks said they don't drink, but they enjoy their weed. So you do what you got to do. Okay. So Imperial Happy Hour live streaming may return. I'm probably going to just do it on Thursdays. So, but stay tuned. We'll see. It's evolving. Okay. It's a process. Okay. I mean, like all of us, I'm just trying to keep it all together. Okay. And as silly or odd as it may sound, I am building my empire, even if it seems slower on some days, more than others. I want you guys to know I really appreciate all of you who dig what I do. Those of you who love my Lieutenant Frank character, those of you who love my Captain America, which is mostly on Hollywood Boulevard. Those of you who enjoy my screen acting in TV and film. Those of you who enjoy my comedy in a lot of different venues and places, and some even permitted or appropriate. This podcast. Here we are doing number 41. Oh, and before I forget, we're going to do a special episode when episode 50 comes up. My sound engineer, Ollie Holiday, it's going to be him and I, kind of similar to what Mark Maron has done with his producer on WTF, What the Fuck podcast. Every so often they do a check-in on milestone episodes. So I'm going to do that with Ollie on episode 50. So it's coming up here, I don't know, weeks, months. We'll see how the schedule goes. But number 50 is going to be with me sitting down with Ollie There's some cool stuff to know about Ollie. He likes to play drums. He's an immigrant. He's a badass sound guy. Which, by the way, if you need someone to do your audio, Ollie can do that. Just contact the pod. I'll get you in touch with Ollie. There's links to Ollie when you go to the episode page for each podcast. You'll see the credits at the very end, and there's a link there to Ollie. So if you want to connect with him, get some quotes, what he can do for you, he is amazing. The amazing Ollie. So this podcast, I just appreciate you guys who appreciate it, are listening from literally across the globe. It makes me super happy. Back in the day when I was even nerdier and I collected stamps, I was that guy. I would like to see all these different countries across the globe. And now to actually have people who live in those countries listening to me, people I've never met, listening to my pod. I just, I dig that. That's kind of cool. Very cool, especially for a dude who got kicked out of college because he dared to publish a newspaper, an independent newspaper. So, that stuff is cool. I appreciate it. So if you know someone in some far off place that seems a little exotic compared to Los Angeles, let them know about my pod. And I want to see the stat pop up on the SoundCloud, because that's how I tell the metrics there. So anyways, I appreciate all of you for hanging in there with me. We're all going through some stuff. That said, mental health is not an awareness thing for 1 month out of the year. No. I struggle with PTSDs, depression, and have a history of suicide ideation. And there's so much messing with our heads each and every day, coming in from every direction. So whatever's messing with yours, just know you're not alone, and help is always available. You can get immediate support 24/7. You can also reach out to the crisis text line by texting SEIZE, that's SEIZE, to 741-741. Or you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. I don't know if you need to dial the 1. Key numbers to remember, 800-273-8255. Unless you're on a rotary dial tone, or landline type thing, I guess. Not everyone has a mobile phone. It's free, and everything you tell them is confidential, unless it's essential to contact emergency services to keep you or your friends safe. Now, there are other resources that might be more specific and helpful to you. I'm just sharing what's worked with me in my experience. Just know there's a lot of help that's available. So you're not alone, and you got a lot of cool things to help make the world a better place, even if you might not know that or believe that. I know that. I believe that. And I want you, within the sound of my voice, to know you can call, you can text, there's help. All right? Maybe there's someone, next door, or there's someone that you can Zoom. All right? There is someone. And whether it's COVID-19, money stress, sexual harassment, racism, or something else, it's okay to ask for help. Someone does want to listen. You can call 1-800-273-8255. And as I mentioned before, thank you to all of our listeners across the globe. Yeah, you used to be stamps that I collected. Now you're real life human beings listening to my podcast. I see you, Casablanca. Yeah, you're not just a film. You're a city in Morocco. And one of your residents is listening to this podcast. So thank you. And I see you, Casablanca. Much love. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you also, Portland, Oregon. Medan in Indonesia. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Medan? Cows. Of course, it's in the UK. Cowes, spelled Cowes in the UK. I feel like that town is the kind of town that motivated Ricky Gervais to create the original Office. I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm literally going off the name. And look, if you're listening in Cowes, I love you. But, I think if Ricky Gervais were right here now, and we were the three of us holding hands, there'd be an agreement that what I just said was accurate. So, with all due respect, Cowes in the UK, thank you for listening. Emeryville, that's in the technically the East Bay. It's like hugging Alameda, in the San Francisco East Bay, very near a bridge, the San Francisco Bay Bridge that will get you into San Francisco proper. What do I know about Emeryville? There is an IKEA. Or at least there was an IKEA back in the early 2000s, the first decade of the 2000s. After that, after The Big Short, I don't know. Couldn't tell you. There's Poznan. That's in Poland. They are listening to the podcast. Thank you, Poznan. I see you. Asheville, North Carolina. And Argyle, Texas. Thanks for listening, all of you. You can listen to the podcast on many platforms, whichever one you're listening to. Don't forget to rate and review us, okay? And for all your listening choices, go to markromanempire.com, click listen, and take it from there. Hey, you got questions? I got answers. They may not be good answers, but that never stopped our orange and chief, did it? No questions this week, but you can email your questions to me at romanpodmail@gmail.com, and I might answer them on the podcast. We'll see. romanpodmail@gmail.com. Now, if you like more podcasts, you can support it. Yes, you can. Instead of pleasing advertisers, I gotta be me. Yeah, I just gotta be me. So if you dig what I do, there's a few ways you can support me. There's the tip jar, and that's where your Venmo, your Cash App, or even your PayPal makes a huge difference. MarkRomanEmpire.com, click tip jar. On SoundCloud, there's a link to I think it's linking to my Patreon now. Look for I think it's still blue, the support Mark Roman Empire button on SoundCloud. That goes to my Patreon now. More about that in a second. 7 years ago, my Lieutenant Frank took a page from Reno 911. No, and Quibi. Remember Quibi? Remember when Quibi was going to be a big deal? Anyway, I took a page, or rather, my Lieutenant Frank took a page from Reno 911, added a Barbie walkie and rainbow tactical leg warmers, and started walking tall in his own way. Now you can put words in Lieutenant Frank's mouth. Lieutenant Frank has done 43 personalized short videos on the celebrity shout-out platform, Cameo. Have Lieutenant Frank roast your friends. Surprise that person. You know, the one for whom you can never quite find the right gift. How about this? Deliver a unique happy birthday message. Or celebrate an upcoming, we're not going to go back to school because that's a bad idea. Just yet. Party. I don't know. Do it your way. Whatever. Have some fun. It's a fun and safe way to make someone smile. Smiles and laughter. Who couldn't use more of that right now? It's only $10, so hurry and get a few cameos from Lieutenant Frank before the price increases. Cameo.com/Vegas 90210. Is that like the Tory spelling vehicle? Yes, like the Tory spelling vehicle. Cameo.com/Vegas 90210. Hero tier. I coined the word. Also, it's my cause. Are you a hero tier? We have been helping house Venka and Will since December 2019, and we've been helping creatives since St. Patrick's Eve 2020. Venka and Will do now have a home, and we want to help them keep it. They have been using food banks. They need cash for gas, medicines, hospital bills, and desperately needed car repairs. Hero Tier will continue to help them keep their new home and recover from their traumas. Now, I've noticed since they got into their new place, the Section 8 housing, that the participation in Hero Tier has dropped off. And I know there's a pandemic. I know there's a lot of worthy causes out there, but we are still here for Venka and Will. And Venka will let us know when she's back on her feet. And when she is, there's certainly quite a few people here in LA who do need a home. Hero Tiers end homelessness one human at a time, and Will and Venka still need our help. And only Hero Tiers can win cool prizes in the weekly Cards for Hero Tiers game. On our YouTube channel, Mark Roman Empire on YouTube, we did play Cards for Hero Tiers 18 on Monday of last week. Okay, because, we didn't have the pod last week, so that was in anticipation of this episode, which is finally here. And Hero Tier fans of Jimmy Century won. They won an autographed Mark Roman photo. That's going to be so awesome for them to get. You can hear my interview with Victor and Alicia of FOJC. That's fans of Jimmy Century. Okay. JC, yeah, you thought of something else, didn't you? I know you. Yeah, you can hear my interview with Victor and Alicia in episode 29, the Fans of Jimmy Century episode. So check that out. Next week's Cards for Hero Tiers prize is a surprise prize. And we'll tease the next episode of the podcast. So watch Cards for Hero Tiers 19 on Monday, Mark Roman Empire on YouTube. Follow Hero Tier on Instagram at Hero Tier Graham. We need 3,000 to ensure housing security for Venka, Will, and their puppy, Andy. We found 51 Hero Tiers since December. Who's next? Leave no human outside. Whether you need help or can offer help, or are just curious, visit herotier.org to discover more. Yeah, it's like how it sounds. Hero, H-E-R-O, tier, T-E-E-R. No crying here. Hero Tier, H-E-R-O-T-E-E-R. Herotier.org. Now, Oscar Armando, I met via mutualaidla.org. Brief note or idea or thought on Mutual Aid LA. It's an organization from the people who brought you Ground Game LA. Really great cause. I've donated to mutualaidla.org. I've also been helped by mutualaidla.org. They got me a bag of groceries a few months back. They also paid my internet and phone bill 1 month. Great organization. If you're in Los Angeles and you need help, or if you're in a position to help, you can volunteer. It doesn't even have to be just financial. Visit mutualaidla.org. I did, and I met Oscar. And by the way, quick note on the audio quality, as I mentioned earlier, it's a work in progress. Okay, I'm gradually getting better, but I think I've kind of figured out with the last few interviews I've done to get the best audio that my current equipment situation will permit and allow, which is superior to what I was at when I recorded this particular interview with Oscar. So you can hear it, but just bear that in mind because there may have been some interviews in previous podcasts that sounded better. That's why podcasts next week and moving on, you're going to hear the best quality that I've delivered so far. So just bear that in mind. And thanks again for your patience. Oscar Armando, he was born in Fountain Valley, California. His parents were from El Salvador. Yeah, immigrants in the OC. What could go wrong? Actually, a lot went right. And we hear it in my discussion, my conversation, my interview with Oscar. Oscar and I also share a few actor and filmmaker influences. We get into that a little bit. Oscar's known for his cinematography in the horror short Midnight to One, among other productions. Let's discover Oscar Armando together, shall we? Did you like the cold open with Thurston Howell III from Gilligan's Island? I love it. My patrons got to listen to it early. Yeah, it's one of the perks for my Patreon patrons. That's right, Mark Roman Empire is on Patreon. The citizen patron level is only $5 a month, less than that cost of that mask you bought, but don't wear. You gotta wear your mask, kids. And citizen patrons pay it only once a month. Other levels coming soon. I'm getting to it. Learn more at patreon.com/Mark Roman Empire. They're still building it. Can you hear it? Yeah, we got modern tools in the Empire. Oscar,
What's going on, Mark?
how you doing, man? We met in kind of an unusual way because most people I have on the podcast, they fit in 1 to 2 categories. One is people I've like met in real life, back in the day, doing different stuff, acting or doing comedy or busking or what have you. Or it's someone that is verified on Twitter that for some reason follows me, and then I just reach out to them and I'm like, hey, awesome that you're following me. Not entirely sure why, Tom Cruise. But, if you'd like to be on my podcast, that would be cool. And a few people been gracious enough to take me up on the offer. So, but you're in a third category because we literally, if the pandemic had not happened, I mean, I'm sure we would have run into each other just because, the town, but it's literally because of the COVID-19 that we met, right?
Right. I just want to know, has Tom Cruise been on the show?
The Church of Scientology paramilitary force has informed me that I can neither confirm nor deny any participation that Mr. Cruise may or may not have had with this particular.
Copy that. That makes absolute sense. Totally.
It's kind of funny. It's amazing because I actually back in the day I did an acting gig, a non-union acting gig early in my career, as we all do, that we're not necessarily proud of, along with like some reality TV and what have you. But I did 1 or 2 of those Scientology gigs out in the super secret compound that's like on the way to going to Las Vegas. And oh my God, it was so creepy, so spooky. There's like this weird library that was dark with this big, huge picture of L. Ron Hubbard.
Wait, what were you doing? Like, I want to know, what was the role or what happened?
I don't even remember. Classy looking white guy being a Scientologist guy. Like, that's what they were going for, it seemed. You look around, you see a lot of other white people like you, and you're like, yeah, no, they're very multicultural. Certainly. Yeah. Way to go, Alban. But yeah, and then they've got like compounds like every few blocks here in Hollywood. So I've done different characters busking. So like as the character, like I'll engage with them and they don't really want to engage back because I don't fit their profile. But I got to be honest, I feel a little hurt because I'd hear stories from other fellow actors who would do the same kind of acting work. And then they would get hit up for joining the Church of Scientology. And that never happened to me. Now, mind you, I would immediately turn them down, but it's like it hurt my feelings.
You
like,
just want to,
come on.
You're like, I just want a shot.
You follow me on Twitter, Tom, but you don't want me to join your super creepy secret club. Like, what's going on? Come on, Tom.
Oh man, that's
yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing or if that's a problem, but I mean,
well, I'm already on the FBI subversive list.
Well,
From
there you
back
go.
in college days when I dared to publish an independent student newspaper in Michigan. Don't do that in the early 90s. I learned my
Oh.
lesson. So, I'm already on the shit list. So it's like, what more could anyone do? But that's not how we met. How we met is there's these cool organizations that have sprouted up since the pandemic called mutual aid societies. And there's one called Mutual Aid LA. In fact, I think it's mutualaidla.org, which I've since donated to and I enormously support. And you are a part of that organization, are you not?
Yes, I volunteer with them, and do the best that we can to help people, especially right now with the pandemic and everything that's going on. And mostly Los Angeles County, like Los Angeles County. We do get some people who are not in Los Angeles, but they're seeking aid, and fortunately, we're able to help them as well.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's what Mutual Aid has been doing for the last 3 months, specifically COVID oriented. But before that, Mutual Aid was around. They've been around for a while. They work with
Oh,
Power.
was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, they work with Power and Ground Game LA, which are two other organizations here in Los Angeles. And
Yeah, I know Ground Game LA. We've actually had Ace Catano on the podcast.
Hey, okay.
Ace is awesome.
Yeah, so you're familiar with the people that help.
Love Ground Game LA. Yeah, no, ever since I found out that someone was running against my alleged city council person, Mitcho, where are you? I mean, Mitcho Farrell. Yeah.
Oh my
So-
goodness. Yeah. So that's how we met, and we just happened to connect, and here we are on the podcast. This is
We didn't just connect. You helped me because I was like, working artist here, and suddenly, the pandemic canceled both my busking income because there's like no more tourists in Hollywood, so I can't be a character busking for
Right.
tips on the boulevard. And as we'll talk more with you because you're a producer and a director. The town shut down, production shut down. So my other source of income, working as an actor, mostly background acting, like that shut down because like there was no, like literally I would see job postings for job opportunities at Central Casting and other places, and they just shut the fuck down. They're just like, nope, we're not doing it anymore.
just canceled
We're on
everything.
pause. Yeah. So yeah, no, you were one of the people that reached out to me because I went on the website, I submitted my info, I said, "Hi, I need help," and I got the PayPal yesterday. So thank you guys.
Yes, it
guys are
works.
It worked. And what's awesome about it is that guess what I'm still waiting for?
What is it?
My United States IRS, U.S. Treasury stimulus check
What?
that was allegedly scheduled to be mailed. They're not saying they mailed it. They're saying it was scheduled to be mailed May 1st. And it's been that way since the week before May 1st.
Did you get a letter from the White House by any chance? Because I got a letter from the White House.
I did with the orange one's enormous signature.
Oh my
Yeah, so I got that. That really helped.
Well, it says,
I had a bird cage. I would have stuck it underneath, and then it would have served the purpose. Right now,
oh
I'm just
my
like,
goodness.
what do I do with this again? How is this helping? I don't understand.
The stimulus, so the letter, it said that like the stimulus check had been mailed, and they were hoping that it would help with everything that's going on with the pandemic. So I was like, if they mailed it to you and they sent you the White House letter, then I don't know, like what do you do then? What do you do then?
That's a great question. And thanks to the IRS website update literally days ago, I can either call a phone number.
Okay.
That sounds like a fun way to spend a day or two. or mail a letter, which sounds like a fun way to spend weeks on end waiting to figure out if anyone actually received it, read it, is in a position to do anything about it. So yeah, the only thing I've gotten is the letter with the big signature.
Oh my goodness.
I don't. This is not an exact quote, but I kind of feel like it was like, okay, so I'm like the best president ever, and well, I'm totally all over the Corona thing, the COVID-19. I just want you to know that it's over 18, so it's good. Okay, all right. She's totally over 18. She's 19. I got you covered. I've got a big signature. I'm the best president ever in the history of presidents ever. And I just thought you should know. You're welcome. That's what I remember. And that's my crappy impression of the orange one. My buddy John D. Domenico does a much better impression of him. But yeah, that's mine.
I think that the words, it's like hearing it. I can see him tweeting something like this, maybe, perhaps.
Stream of consciousness. Yeah, he's literally like the most unvetted by his own,
At first,
relation.
I thought that the tweets were not like I don't even know to this day if they're still him. I feel like maybe somebody, like I still am like, did somebody hack these tweets and write these things? Because sometimes these things are just like, there's no way this is literally what's being typed on the other side of the world right now.
Remember that scene in Men in Black, and I deep into it, and Will Smith's character is like, it's being revealed, Rip Torn is showing him like, all the famous people in the world, that the celebrities were actually aliens that are being monitored.
Right.
And you see like, Michael Jackson, you see Tony Robbins, you see a bunch of others. Like that's the moment I feel like this, and then you see the orange one, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
I see them coming out of the exosuits, the little guys.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah, there's a little guy up in his forehead.
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. Man.
I don't know. Allegedly, again, I just got some weird and moving a lot lately because a lot of this is gonna this particular interview is probably gonna drop in a couple of weeks, but like today, this is a fallout from yesterday. Today, an actor got charged for rape, and then yesterday, a comedian, a bunch of allegations spilled out that comedian had basically been hounding underage girls.
Oh, and wow.
It wasn't until today that, he got caught by TMZ. And he's like, no, I deny it. But by the way, in denying it, I just also want to say that, I kind of look back on my life and I have some regrets and I'm sorry. And I was stupid and what have I done? But I definitely do that. I didn't know they were underage. I had no idea. No, that I definitely didn't do. But,
oh my God.
Really? When did you stop beating your wife? It's like, I didn't mean to allege this guy was married either. So,
guys,
and I won't say his name because I say the names of people that have died because of police brutality. Like I'll say their names, but no, I'm not going to say a name of some white douchebag asshole criminal guy who's gotten away with, almost murder.
Jeez, that's crazy. I did not.
Yeah, where was LAPD for that? Where were they for that?
Down the street from my place, apparently.
Sorry. Oscar, I'm like, I'm venting at you, and we really should be learning more about you.
No, the story's good. It's funny because like earlier today there was.
You're a filmmaker.
Yeah. We're out here and we had to put, like you said, a lot of the production that we had planned had been put on hold or on standby. Literally today, another project got pushed back. It's probably gonna be pushed back till July, possibly. Maybe.
It still seems so soon.
Yeah. It's still like we're still kind of just going into what we call pre-pandemic production. Kind of like if we're really gonna do any filming or anything in the near future, I don't know when we're actually going to be able to like be okay with everything, just because of it. The studios. What they're doing right now is there's a lot of precautions that are being taken. Like medics have to be on site that specifically are trained with COVID guidelines. There has to be like washing stations like available to people. There's bathroom, usages that are specific to specific cast or specific crew and things like that. It's just a lot of what we call planning has gone into just even thinking about making something happen in film or in television. So that's where we are now. And earlier today, we had a production meeting and had to push something back. But yeah, we're just all kind of standing by still. As you know, you're in entertainment, and you're in film and television as well. So it kind of affected a lot of people that I personally know, but also people that I just happen to come across. If it was either through Mutual Aid LA or if it was through just people who happen to be on Facebook or something. It's just terrible how it almost feels like the industry kind of just like went to a halt, and everybody was just like, okay, what's going to happen now? And now that we're allegedly getting out of it, like getting into the next phase of taking precautions and things like that, people still don't know like what's going to happen.
I don't want to be on a set.
Yeah, that's another thing.
I don't want to, because I've got a Screen Actors Guild, which I'm dues paying member. We're getting warnings about how a lot of productions are issuing these releases, kind of similar to like the release that the Orange One's going to issue at that next rally he's doing, where it's like,
oh my
there's totally no COVID, it's a hoax. But just in case, sign her here. Press hard. There's 3 copies. Okay, don't sue. I do the suing. You don't do the suing. I do the suing. I'm the sewer in chief. Okay, it's SUER, not SEWER.
I didn't know that they were making people sign waivers.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. So it's like there's that, which I got to be honest. If it was my production, the liability is like frightening. And I guess all the guilds came together just in the last week to hash out what we've got right now. But like we've never been here before, so it's like it's fraught with so much potential disaster at every turn, it seems like.
Yeah, we had to make some changes for like key, because like you said, some people aren't comfortable coming on set yet, or they don't know if they ever if there's going to be a possibility for like something to change that in the near future, because this thing, what we call the pandemic, it's not like it went away. It's more like we're taking precaution. It's more like we're gonna allow people to go back to work, with safety precautions and things, but you might want to just not go back to work if you don't feel safe, because again, we can't force anybody to work, and then also anybody who doesn't feel like going or safe at going to work, like I absolutely completely understand, especially a lot of cast and crew, like with families, they'll have like newborn babies, or they'll have like family members who are really
elderly,
like who can be impacted in one way or another, because they think, if I go to work, then I'm coming home and all these things could happen. And I totally understand that. That's why it's still very like hands-on, but not very hands-on at the same time, if that makes sense. With the practices, like they're definitely being implemented.
It doesn't, but I kind of get where, it's like we're trying to make this work. And we lack lots of information, and there's things we know we definitely should have that we don't have yet. But we're like,
Right.
yeah, but we got to get back to it somehow, some way.
Right.
So we're trying to figure out the way. And it's like the answers are not very satisfactory to like anybody, it feels like.
Absolutely. And that's, I think that like a lot of the guilds, what they're doing right now is just like ensuring that the protection of, you know, if it's SAG, then they want to issue as much information as possible to SAG members. If it's the DGA, you know, same thing. The PGA, just I think that
It's Directors Guild and Producers Guild
the
for
Producers Guild, yep, and then the ASC, you know, the cinematographers, the association. I have a friend who's shooting a documentary, and he's in pre-production for this, and he's telling me, he's like, you know,
wow.
I don't know when we're gonna shoot it, but we're gonna start shooting it like soon, and that seems to be like it seems to be like the everyday conversation starter now. It's like, we're gonna start this up and we're gonna get it going, but we
That's
just
encouraging.
yeah, yeah, and
What does
so
that really mean? Yeah.
but in other parts of the world, it's really crazy because like I don't know if you've been like kind of just digging into what the other parts like Sweden, Switzerland, like all these other parts of the world,
Take us to school. What are you
they
hearing?
they've been like they were able to pump out some content for like TV shows and films, finish up some
Yeah, but
films
didn't
actually.
Sweden just suddenly have a bunch of new COVID cases now?
See, that's the thing. So now they're talking about taking what they believe are safety precautions and applying them to their regions and their, you know, geographic location. But the cool thing and the funny thing is that everybody looks at Hollywood, everybody looks at Los Angeles, and they're just like, okay, what are they doing, right? But we also do see what you would call the I call them the rogue filmmakers, if you will, and just kind of taking things to precaution, like testing everybody, making sure that everything is legitimized before anybody even comes on set, and having you know, medical releases filled out and everything that's but it's been going on even throughout this lockdown that we've had, or this pandemic lockdown that we've had here in Los Angeles. I don't know
Yeah.
if you saw how many people were at the beach once they went into phase 2. Santa
Yeah.
Monica was ridiculous. Like I just saw it in the newspapers and things, but
Like school's out.
yeah, basically like
Like
everybody
school's out. I don't need to wear a mask. Pandemic's over. Nobody's gonna catch anything.
they were doing
What could possibly go wrong?
they were doing
I've
interviews.
been stuck inside. Like I don't care. I just want to go to the beach. Deal. We're dealing.
Oh my gosh.
We're not happy.
Have you
Dealing.
been to the beach yet?
No, and I love the beach. I really want to go to the beach, but hell no. That's like the most insane idea. Although, I mean, if theoretically, like if the beach is, I'll grant you, better than like a tiny enclosed space. Like
Right.
I would hate to be one of 60 or 100 background holding, you know, in
Oh
this
my
tight
goodness.
little corner of a closed sound stage, and the air conditioning just got turned off because the sound department normally requests that
Right.
prior to rolling cameras. And yeah, so you've got no air circulation in a closed environment with a lot of people in a very confined space. I'm like, that or the beach? I think the beach. The beach is going to be safer. But then again, it's like, you know, do you want to be hopping off of lily pads, jumping over the alligators? Like, is it better to be over the alligator's mouth in midair? Or is it better to be like having all your weight on one of those lily pads that barely holds a frog up? I don't know which one's better, but you know,
It's a risk either way, right? So I mean, I know that, I mean, TV and
I
film
feel like fresh air is good.
still on the standby. The Tyler Perry, you know, he went on record and talked about how the precautions and everything that they've been taking at the studios in Atlanta. And
Yeah, that was the big experiment. How's that going?
that, I mean, I haven't been on site, but I do know that he's serious about, you know, finishing these projects, and he's got a couple of them that he has to finish, or what he's scheduled to finish, not has to finish, but scheduled to finish, um, before fall. And so, you know, they're one of the studios that are just they're green lighting going back into production. And again, like, it's a scary thing to kind of go into it not really knowing, because if you think about how this, you know, you talked about Donald, and you know, the rally that he's going to be partaking in soon, and they're signing waivers and everything. Like, the waivers don't guarantee that, you know, you're going to be okay. It's kind of like, that's just saying that's just
No,
that's
of course not. It's like covering
that's
people's asses. It's like,
that's just
you know,
saying basically
our attorneys tell us our liability is sky high. So yeah,
right,
we're not proceeding unless you sign away all your rights,
right.
so that you know you get sick, which is strongly suspected, is distinctly possible. Nothing falls back on us. It's like, good luck. You knew the risks. You signed the waiver. You held us harmless. I don't know what to tell you. Like,
Right.
it's
There's-
already been dreamed up, figured out, and that's, you know, if you're the one
There's-
signing the release, you're the mark.
that's and even myself, when I sign these papers, like, you know, all these different types of waivers and agreements, I'm like, okay, we're here and I love doing this, but we're still gonna, you know, make sure that everybody feels at least as safe as possible while we're on set or while we're in production. Because I'm not sure if you're familiar with the setup when they do. Well, you are. So, you know, Crafties and all the catering and everything. Like, they taken that to the next level on some productions, because people are getting individualized food packaged, prepackaged, instead of like having what you would
Sure.
call, you know, the sternos and everything set up out in the open.
There's no hanging out at Crafty. There's
Yeah.
no like shared, you know, veggie platter. You know,
No, none of that.
I'm next to Dermot Rooney, and I'm reaching, you know, for a red bell pepper to swipe through the hummus out of the same plate he just did. No, that's not going to happen anymore.
Well, here's where they're actually packaging things into like Ziploc bags and like into what you call safe, like individual packaging to give to actors, talent, and to cast and crew.
Sure, makes sense.
Because of all of these things. And I mean, just us, one of the productions that we're in, you know, in pre right now, we had to expand the budget because of, you know, what is happening with the reopenings of the studios, if you will, or the reopening of like the film and TV world. And, you know, it's all being,
delays cost money.
Super careful about how we approach like the smallest things, because again, even though these people sign waivers, like, I personally feel responsible if something happens on set and it could have been prevented. So a lot of times when I have conversations with, if it's a director, or if I'm directing, it has to be like, I understand you have your personal values and your personal beliefs as far as like everything that's going on right now, but we have to still take this as a serious matter, because I would not want anyone to get sick, or anyone to get in a position where they're just, you know, they're like, I should have stayed home today. You know what I mean?
I know, right?
Because
weigh heavy on someone. Well, you know what? Let's start with let's get to a happier time here. We'll get back to so you grew up in Fountain Valley. That's here in the LA area, right? I'm from up north, so I'm
that's
in
in
LA.
Orange County. I was born in Fountain Valley. and then I was
What's that like?
raised. Well, Orange County is a little bit less um, movie and TV oriented. It's more. It's like Orange County is like the place where you would go and just like buy a house and maybe just like have a family and just live like a really, you know, just planned
Nice upper
and
middle class
nice
life.
life,
Yeah.
nice life. Depending on what part of the city you're in, because where I grew up, it wasn't always the way that it is now. And I actually went back a couple months ago before this pandemic, and like things have changed so dramatically. Everything's
How?
much nicer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They tore down a lot of buildings that used to be like apartment buildings and things like that, and made them into like townhouses. Kind of how they talk about.
So it became more gentrified.
There you go. That's the word. There's a show that came out on Netflix about I think it's the Echo Park area, and it's I think it's called something to do with like gentrified. But how like these parts of the cities, not just like Los Angeles, but again like my back home where I'm from, they're just tearing down old buildings, bringing up new ones, creating more value, and then just bringing in what we call new residents or residents who can, partake in that type of lifestyle.
Right.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's Orange County. For the most part, it was really cool just getting to see a lot of different, it's very diverse. A lot of different people from all over the world live in that part of California. I was raised in a city called Costa Mesa. I'm not sure if you've ever been there, but it's
I've not been, but I've heard of.
yeah, it's pretty mellow. You're not too far from the ocean and that type of like atmosphere and whatnot. And it sounds wonderful, but
Like how many minutes?
Like 10, 15 maybe.
Nice.
Yeah, I used to go on my bike all the time when I was a kid, but depending on what part of the city you grew up in, it kind of changed. Like it had its corners, if you will, or its places where you just didn't want to spend time alone. Sometimes,
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's just like every other city. There's always things happening. Like I can
like
go
what?
into
What kind of thing?
like I can go into story, but there's just.
Well, this is the podcast. This is what it's for. Let's go into the story.
It's like helicopters and police officers coming through, and for the things that
to protect and to serve.
Protect and to serve. Yeah, that's what you would call it. Protect and to serve.
How'd that go?
It's crazy. Because you want to talk about like happier, brighter times. Like I remember when I was a kid, like I was walking home, and this cop just pulls over out of nowhere. He just like literally just screeches on his brakes, and he's like, "Hey!" And I'm like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Hi." I'm like probably like 10, 11 years old at the time. He's like, "Where do you live?" And I was like, "I live down the street." He's like, "What's your address?" And I was like, I told him my address, and he's like, "What?" It was, keep in mind, Mark, it was like 3:00 in the afternoon, right? And I'm trying to figure out like why this police officer was yelling at me in the first place. And he asked me what my address was, and I told him.
And you're riding your bike.
No, I was walking. I used to ride my
bike.
You're
walking.
Yeah, and I was walking to my best friend's house, and he like opened his car. So you're being
a pedestrian on the sidewalk, which is where pedestrians pedestriate.
Just walking. And so he opens his car door.
So you're walking.
Yeah, he opens his car door to his police, to his cruiser, and he's like, "I asked you where your address was," and I told him, I was like, "My address is," and I told him, and then he's like, he just stares at me, and he's like, "Next time, just answer me the first time I ask you a question." I was like, "What?"
Wow,
all right, cool. And so,
and how old are you?
I was like 10 or 11 years old at the time, and so he gets back in the car. And he just speeds off, and like I got to actually ended up going back home because I was like, I don't know what's going on right now, but it seems like this is not the time
I
for
gotta
me to
imagine
be
that's
out
gotta feel pretty scary
there.
when you're 10.
It's like a everyday thing though
Jesus.
for what you call
Well, see, you and I both share the privilege of being 6 foot tall, but
okay.
I'm I'm a white dude. You're a dude, but you're not a white dude, so you didn't have
Yeah,
that privilege going for you when you're 10.
right. I was probably like maybe 5 foot at the time. 5'1", 5'2".
Yeah, but so
But
you're a kid and you get this
right. It's
tall adult who's an authority figure with a badge, and he's got
right.
like a gun and all this
S-
equipment, and he's got this
Scary.
car with lights, and yeah, like geez, that's scary when you're a grown ass man, but to be like 10 years old,
Yeah. And
I can't even imagine.
those are the kind of stories that like would happen in that part of
Jesus.
Orange County. Like you could just be
And
out with
you're an
friends.
American citizen. You're born right here in the United States of America.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's a lot of things that are going on right now with the Black Lives Matter movement. It's because
Right?
it doesn't matter where you grew up, you kind of just feel for the people who have really been through traumatic experiences, because at one point or
Sure.
another you can relate. There's this stigma that's like, the police are there to protect and to serve, but at the same time, like anybody within a given community thinks, well, they're here to protect and to serve, but then there's like but are they like gonna help us if something happens or if something goes down, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
that was what a lot of the people that like I grew up with would always ask, is like, if there was ever really a need, like, is this going to be something of assistance? And I was the kid who was like,
A reluctance to get the police involved, even though a crime is
right,
committed
r-
against you and you need the help of the police, but you're worried, okay, but once they're here, what are they going to do then? And then like
right. And a lot of people would be like, oh, they're gonna. I remember I had friends that would be like, no, 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 they're gonna pin this on us. They're gonna pin this on, and it's like,
yeah.
because the other people involved and whatnot were just looked differently, right? And I
Meanwhile, you
met
have actual crime going on, and you have actual citizens who actually want to be good citizens and they want to report the crime,
right,
but they just know from too much past history, like, yeah, but the last time we did that, this is what went down. So
right,
I think we're going to do that this time.
right. And so there was always this fear of what you call just even being a part of anything that is associated uh, with patrol or police officers or anything like that. And like my high school, we didn't
You
have
just want to get out of there.
it's funny because my high school where I grew up, we had police officers on deck. Like they were in the school patrolling.
Wow.
It wasn't it was security officers, but we also had police officers that would just like make sure that everything was okay, and just like,
See, it's a relatively new thing in the last few decades. Because like
yeah.
I'm an older guy. And now when I was in grade school, middle school, and high school, like up into the 80s, and
Hmm.
I can't remember, like the only time I saw police was because it was like show and tell day.
Oh
And it's like
yeah.
that one time in the entire year, and it's like, meet your local police officer. And they had like stickers and coloring books and what have you for us. And it was like you know, this
Yeah.
like white privilege theater thing. Uh,
I remember the dare officers. That was my favorite days. And here's the funny part, is that everybody
sure.
was like, everybody would be like, oh, you're friends with, like, the people that don't even like protect you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, they're just doing their job. But I understand their perspective, from where that fear comes from, and where that, I mean, it's not even a fear, because like sometimes it really is some like there's injustice that takes place, and who are you to say it's your word against the police officer, or it's your word against, whoever's involved in things. So I'm really glad that, like, a lot of people are bringing to light the differences of how time has progressed, but there
Yeah.
really hasn't been a solution to a lot of things that have been happening throughout, from I would say from the beginning of
It
when.
doesn't seem that way.
Yeah. And so, we're dealing with that. We're dealing with COVID. We're dealing with the studios opening up and the pandemic. But again, yes, these are the stories that would happen in the place where I grew up.
Now, your folks are from El Salvador, right?
Yes. I was talking to my mom.
What would they tell you? What was their perspective when you were growing up about, police and authority? And
So here's the thing. My mom and my father, they left El Salvador because there was a civil war going on in El Salvador.
yeah,
And when they were kids or when they were teens, it was either you picked up a rifle and joined the war, or
wow,
you could possibly be, shot and put in a position where you're no longer existing on the planet, right? And
that doesn't
so,
sound very lucrative either.
and so,
I gotta be honest.
it,
They're noticing a discrepancy there
it
a little
was
bit. So.
right. It was militant officers. It was a different world, but also it was like civilians who, were protecting themselves and their families. And so my mom, she's like, we came to America because we wanted a better life for you and your brother, because
Sure, yeah.
I have an older brother. He's quite a bit older than me, but
How many years?
7 years apart. 7 years apart.
Okay.
Yeah. But
It's almost a generation.
yeah, and so he's he was already out there, and so my parents came from El Salvador, like you mentioned, and they came here, and my the story goes that, like, I was born in Fountain Valley. I was what you call the surprise of the year, because she had just come to
You're the only surprise walking around, Oscar. You're the only surprise on planet Earth.
came to California, and she was like, "Well, I'm pregnant," and I was like, "Oh,"
Again.
she's like, "And it was you," and I was like, "Oh, that's crazy," and so she tells me the story of, like, how we
Fun story, Mom. Thanks. I'm feeling loved.
right. Yeah, no, but then she was like, "Yeah, like," and we ended up staying in Costa Mesa, like Santa Ana area, and
Yeah.
those are really interesting stories that to go back on. But yeah, they're both from El Salvador, and it's been quite an adventure for them to see my mom, primarily because I grew up with my mom, and
Yeah.
she is finally getting the idea that, like, what a filmmaker or producer or director does. She's like, this is what my son does.
What was her perception before? What did she think you were doing?
She thought I was crazy, because she's like, what are you doing? Like, you went to school, you graduated with honors, and you have all these things, and you're gonna go and work in film and TV.
Where'd you go to school? What degree did you get?
I ended up going to business school at Cal State Fullerton, and it's a Cal State University, and it's funny because
Mhm.
I was set to go to Berkeley up in the Bay Area, and
Right.
I ended up staying local because of family things, and also some things that were going on in personal life. But yeah, I went there. I got a business degree, and then
I think
graduated.
I can read between the lines on that. So
Yeah, and then so
significant other wasn't going to be in Berkeley.
that is so funny. You picked up on that.
I was doing the math. It's
And
like
to this day, it's so
priorities. You got to make decisions. You know what I mean? It's like
it's so funny because I have friends who are like, you should have gone to Berkeley. Like, what were you doing? I'm like, you know what? Everything happens for a reason. I truly do believe that. So, but come to find out that two of my favorite entertainers, Kevin Costner and James Cameron, attended Cal State Fullerton. They didn't graduate.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, but they attended it, and I was actually in the theater because I was very involved with like theater and drama and everything, both at Chapman and at Cal State Fullerton.
What
So
what drew you to theater?
Funny story. Going back to high school, I grew up watching comedians. I grew up watching stand up. I loved Jim Carrey.
Me too.
Loved Robin Williams. And then I started venturing into these. Right. And then I started venturing into these guys who were a little bit more on the raw side, like the Richard Pryors and the Dave Chappelle's and and the Chris Rocks. And I was like, whoa, these guys are like these guys are like real, and they're telling the stories that like, that are happening like around me and stuff, but I can relate to this. And so they got me into the world of like I like telling stories, and so I ended up just like taking a bunch of like English courses that were offered to students who had like higher what you call placement at the time. And I remember
advanced placement.
Yeah, it was like AP classes and things like that. And they were like, you're a stellar kid and all these things, and it's like, what do you want to learn and stuff. So like I started to venture into like writing, just writing scripts and writing like anything, like poems. I would just write stuff just in my notebooks. My mom would make fun of me because she's like, most kids are out there like buying new toys and stuff like that, and you're buying notebooks and pencils and highlighters and stuff. And I was like, I don't know what it is. It's just I run out of space in my notebooks, and I need to have more space for like my notebooks. And then one day,
so your compulsion was to write.
Yes.
Did you have any desire to perform?
Yes, that came a little bit later. The performing aspect of it.
That's interesting. So you were writing first.
Yeah, the performances came in like pre-college and right around college. I would just like find myself in positions where people would be like casting, and they'd be like, "Hey, I think you'd be great for this role. Like, do you want to come and audition?" And I'd be like, "Sure." And then I'd audition, and they'd be like, "All right, like it's a no-brainer. We're gonna go ahead and like talk to the director, but and then they'd get back to me, and a lot of times it was just like it was really cool to see that I could go into the world of a character and play it well enough to where they thought that I was good. Because I never thought I was good. I'd be like, I don't understand why people would keep. It's this thing. I think as being an artist, I think a lot of times it's like I found that I judge and critique myself more than anything, and I've heard it from so many people who work in entertainment. It's just the thing. And then people are like, what I do to get rid of that? Like, I just do it anyways, or I paint, or I go and like write a song about it or whatever. And I'm like, that stuff, it helps. But yeah, the performance
express yourself in a different way, maybe like cross training, so it kind of takes the pressure off. It's like, well, I'm not a painter, I'm an actor, so it's going to go paint. So there's no stakes involved there.
No, and I love painting. And so
what do you paint?
I whatever feels, right. I have a couple of pieces that I have like just sporadically. I've never like put anything on display like an art show or anything like that, but I got more into it when I was in college. I had a roommate in college who was really good at murals and like painting, and I would watch that every day. Yeah, and I would watch him, and I'd be like, dude, this guy's so good. And I'm watching his methods and everything, and I'm like, and I'm doing very like abstract, just kind of like more of a sentiment piece versus like an actual, you know, person or like an object.
Hmm.
I'm more of a lucid dreamer. Like, you know, let me paint this starry sky with, you know, all these crazy.
Like the environment, the experience, as opposed to the
Yes,
individual people that are
yes,
populating that world.
yes, yes.
I
And
find that affects your what you do as a filmmaker.
yeah, it does, because like it kind of frees up the mind. Um, it
I guess
frees.
that's a useful thing to have as a filmmaker because you need to have that big picture vision.
Mhm,
Like that's kind of the first base to get the whole thing done. Otherwise,
mhm.
you're hung up on this one character over here. You know,
Right. Have you ever heard of an artist named Bob Ross?
never heard of him. No.
Okay. So I got to tell you about Bob Ross.
Yeah, Bob Ross, the one white dude with a fro that everyone forgives. Yes,
I
of course
love
I know Bob
I
Ross.
love Bob Ross. Like I remember
It's like saying, are you familiar with the actor known as Nicolas Cage?
That's right. Yes.
Yo, he and I have the same birthday. I just found this out. That's crazy.
No, I stood in for him in a film,
No way. Which film?
The Trust.
Oh my
It was
goodness.
him and Elijah Wood, and he actually brought Jerry Lewis in, which is
Uh-huh.
amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Imagine you're stuck in this suburban Las Vegas residential home,
Okay.
and it's the middle of the day, blazing, Nevada sun scorching outside, but we're shooting a night scene. So they cover up all the windows, the lighting guys. And then so you got all this cast, all this crew, everyone stuffed into this tiny little 3-bed, 2-bath house.
Yeah.
All of a sudden the door opens, you see the light, and this entourage floats in, and you hear, "What the fuck are we doing? Are we shooting a goddamn porno or what?" That was my introduction to Jerry Lewis.
Oh my goodness. You got to see.
And you know what? I'm happy with that. Like I feel like that's the height of the experience I could have, because I've heard other stories how
Right.
people connect with Jerry, and I like mine. I'm just gonna leave it at that,
Yeah. Jerry, man,
Yeah. But
that's
then to see Nicolas Cage, given what we all might imagine Nicolas Cage to be, to like see him,
mhm.
act as almost like this son figure to Jerry, and like working with him to pull off that scene that day, but then also to see Nick work with these first time twin brother film directors. It's like the first feature film they ever did. They did music videos before. This is their first time. Yeah. So he's like kind of like big brother mentoring them, but
Right.
not too much. He's like was very conscious. Look, hey, this is your thing. You're doing it. I'm here. I'm just being Nick, being Nick, and then there's me on my first day where I, look to him and I'm like, as a stand-in, and I'm like, based on what little stand-in experience I had, which was like standing in, I think, for some TV show one time, and then like watching other stand-ins do their thing. So I'm like, I'd noticed what happened early in the day. So I'm like, oh, so Mr. Cage, I think what's going on here. And he just looks at me and he
Oh my
goes,
goodness.
"Oh, really?" And I was like, I got the message. I'm like, okay, just
Yeah.
from window dressing. I get it. Cool. All right. Now we know. Didn't say a word until the end of production. We do the wrap party, and then the next day we shoot the final scene. When the day over,
Mhm.
suddenly he's chatty Cathy with me. He's like,
Hey, Mark, how's it going? Wow, it's been really great working with you. And hey, so you live around here? That's awesome. It's great.
and just like, but I was like, I get it, because it's like I can even imagine what it's like being Nicolas Cage. Just you're a human being trying to live your life, but there's this thing out there, and the minute a complete stranger sees you and recognizes you, they become this different person, because they're just like, "Oh my God, it's Nicolas Cage."
It's Nick.
I literally saw a
Right.
group of bro dudes in Vegas do that, and just to watch Nick just kind of like 3 parking lots away turn around and kind of like almost raise his hand a little bit and go like, "Oh, hey, thanks." And it was just like he gave them just enough. And I just
Wow.
watched her do that. I'm like, Jesus, how many times has he done that like this week alone?
Oh my
Just
goodness.
how exhausting must that be? So yeah, it was kind of a wild ride.
That's really cool.
Amazing to
'Cause
work with.
you-
There's a lot of things that I feel like people don't really know about Nicolas Cage because they have this very limited vision of him based on, well, everything
right,
that they've perceived from his films.
right.
But I saw him wear so many hats in that month. It was amazing. And yeah, he was performing Jedi moves that were kind of frankly breathtaking, which
Wow. Yeah, you had the Brewer brothers, or what is it?
that's right. Brewer Brothers.
Alex and Benjamin.
Yeah.
They
You know 'em?
they co-directed. I have not met them in person yet, but I know that the film. It was a recent film, right? Like 2015, 2016, something like that came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and it's funny because the film it's about corrupt cops, and so I just think that it's funny that you met Nicolas Cage on a film, and you got to see all these different aspects of, like, filmmaking, but also what the story is really interesting. Yeah, so I mean,
It's a good movie too. I see a lot of people like diminish it, when you look at like reviews
Elijah
online.
Wood, yeah, it's Nicolas Cage and Elijah
It's like some
Wood.
disposable B movie, but like, having lived through almost every day of production, seeing it get put together, and then to like watch the final product. I mean, I'm not saying it's in danger of getting an Academy Award, but I thought it was for what it is. It's like it's a bad cop flick. Like it's like you got Nicolas Cage, you got Elijah Wood, you got Jerry Lewis. Like I'm glad I watched it. I would watch it again. It's not Gladiator. It's not Goodfellas. It's not Heat, but it's a good film for what it is. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't know.
Yeah, they.
And when you think about that, the Brewer brothers, that was their very first, thing out of the gate, the first film they did, then that's even more amazing because, it wasn't like someone who this is like their 30th feature film, and they just,
I think that they. At first I was like, wait, are they brothers? And I was like, yeah, they're brothers. And I heard about that film. It's funny because, like, Nick Cage is we're on Nicolas Cage, but he's one of the actors that I really, 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 truly do pay attention to, as far as like his way of just creating characters, and there's
right?
there's something that people always have to say about his work, but he's just a very unique individual, and like I personally, like, I like watching his projects. It's like
Do I?
it's like going into an entirely, like, you just don't know what to expect sometimes, but then you're like, okay, it's Nicolas Cage, and he's gonna bring something like to the table that you kind of got to set yourself up for that. So like he's one of the.
There's also a sense of danger, like, so you don't know what's going to happen. Something's going to happen, which is what you want. It's
the
like
anticipation, yeah.
So
yeah,
it's like volatile. It's a sense of like at any moment something could happen, and it's going to be exciting. It's like
he might, yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And so
we didn't come to this to sip tea and like notice, the frescoes on the wall. That's not what a Nicolas Cage film's about. Like, maybe they're screening Downton Abbey in the other building.
Oh, nice.
And I love Downton Abbey.
Man, it's what's that film? Gosh, somebody just told me that they watched one of his pieces, one of his projects, and they were like, I don't know, it was something else. And I'm like, it's because you got to treat everything individually. Like, you can't just come into it expecting something, because then you're just limiting yourself to what you know
right
of
exactly.
this art. And that's
Judge it on its own terms.
yeah, like just let it be what it is. And I mean,
Right.
like when you're on set, I'll be working with actors, and it's like you don't get the shot you want, you get the shot that like is supposed to happen, right? Like
Mhm.
that's how the magic flows. Like that's how we're able to allow creativity to be what you call born.
To breathe.
Yeah, and to breathe, because otherwise you're just telling people left and right, like, okay, this is not what I need you to do, and you are, playing you're playing too hard into it. Like, give me some more music on this line, but at the same time, you know, to tone it to like maybe a 3. You're at a 5, but you want to be at a 3. I get it. Like, some
And what does that even mean? Because
I
I
know,
like
right?
hear that
And then, and
actor
then,
and I'm like,
and as a,
what,
as a director, when you're
what's wrong with the even numbers? Why are we
right,
talking 5? It's like, what does
right.
that even?
And I come from, like what I was talking about earlier, like I come from writing and actually performing. Like that's when I was really interested in the doing of the business. I didn't think that I was gonna be like producing or anything like that. But I gradually got into that after, college and
Just
everything.
haven't had a lot of producers on the podcast, so go into a little, for folks that maybe aren't as familiar with the film industry or
Yeah,
listening.
yeah.
What is the role of a producer? What does a producer actually do?
The producer wears multiple hats. Depending on what type of producer they are, like if you are a like a story producer, for example, on a project, you're in charge of creating, what this this project is actually going to be oriented around, like building the story basically, and working with the
Mm.
teams that develop that. If you come on
You're working with
as
the writers.
you're working with the creatives and people who guide the what you call this the tale of the characters in the story. um but if you're coming on as like a producer for like a film or a project that's like a short film or anything, like it depends if you're doing independent or if it depends if you're doing something studio based, because studio based has a huge amount of people working on projects at any given time, and there's
A lot of bosses that gotta sign off on it.
there's a bunch of multiple people that have to give green lights before like things happen sometimes. You're a little bit more flexible in the independent world. If you're producing a independent picture, you're usually working with a budget that can range anywhere from like close to, I got a camera and I got this idea, right, and this script, and I have it, and then you just kind of build from there. Um, or sometimes you have 100,000, 200,000, like you know dollar budgets, and it just depends on how involved you are with the project as well, because as a producer, like part of your job, or at least part of my job, is allocating funds. So when you do have a project, you bring it to executives, and you have meetings and whatnot, and kind of have conversations about this project that came across your desk, or your table. And a lot of the time that like actually is spent produce, or what you call doing producer work, is reading scripts, reading books, um, you know communicating with like either what we call new writers, or writers who are in the world of creating their first project, or maybe their second project, um, or writers who have people attached to their projects already, and they're just waiting on appropriate studio, space. It's like, okay, we need to be able to get this into this person's hands so that we can move forward with it. and then attach these people, and okay, they're locked in, we're ready to go. And sometimes it's as easy as, you know, getting something just moving, but there's stories sometimes that take like years to develop, and it's not because I never understood it. Like when people would tell me stories when I was like a little bit newer to the business, they would be like, you know, sometimes it takes like 10 years or longer to like make a picture come to life. And I'm like, how is that possible that it takes that long to make a movie or to like make a, you know, a series? And
Right.
I've
What did you
learned that
discover?
there's so many components, and it's
A lot of moving parts, huh?
it's a lot of parts, and also sometimes it's just like the timing. Like, you know, if a studio doesn't feel like this is a time to be telling this type of story, like you're
Oh,
just like,
right.
oh,
Sure.
okay, we're gonna put this one on standby, um, and then move forward with whatever is feasible at the time of what you call production, uh, when you're going into production. And you know, budgets, like they can exceed. Sometimes you're managing budgets, like sometimes you're, as a producer, sometimes you're just making sure that everybody literally who is being brought into the project, like you can afford to have them for X amount of days. You know, if you're on a 31 day shoot, then, you know, you better make sure that you have cushion and space for other things that will come up. It's not a thing of like if they come up. There will be things that come up that you need to allocate
Right.
budget and resources for, because there's just life. It's just like life. Like literally, when you're on set, anything can happen. Just like in movies, like it's the same thing when you're on set. Like literally anything can happen at any moment, and then you're like,
Especially when you're shooting on location, you've got
right,
civilians just randomly wandering in, and you're trying to corral them, but technically, theoretically, like a free country, you can wander around, you know, in public.
have you had
Uh,
that on a set that you were on? Have you had people come on just like,
multiple sets.
really?
It's just, you know, nothing may actually happen. Sometimes something does happen, but there's always just this sense of kind of, it's the same kind of like foreboding danger of like, what's Nicolas Cage going to do next?
Right,
It's that with, holy crap, like there's all this stuff going on, all this equipment, all these union people with
right,
these salaries and these hourly wages, and now we're going into overtime, and
right.
holy crap, there's these group of guys, and I don't know what they're up to, but they just might wander over here because they seem really interested in what the hell we're doing,
Oh
and okay,
no.
what's going to happen. So yeah, it's amazing to me that really any production
Mhm.
ever makes it to a screen.
You
It's
know,
just, it's like
you are not the first person that has said
it's
this
so wrong.
this
Or even
year.
on a studio lot without COVID, like you literally, it's like being on a construction site
Right.
without helmet. Because like you ever look up when you're in one of those studio lots,
Oh
just
my
all the
goodness.
crap that's hanging from the ceiling, and like you see like, you know, cobwebs and dust, and then you realize, holy shit, this is a soundstage where they shot, you know, the Wizard of Oz, or like, you
Right.
know,
Right.
Rebel with Icons, like these iconic films from literally like decades ago, generations ago, stuff like that your great grandfather, you know, watched as a kid, and you're just like,
Oh man.
how sturdy is that chain cable holding that really heavy object that's right above my head right now? Like,
It's
I
safe.
don't know, you
It's
know,
safe.
and it's like, but it's like you know, of course it's safe because you got these, you know, a lot of money's at stake, and you got these studio, and there's like, you know, unions are involved, you know, insurance companies are involved,
Right.
so there's like a lot of high stakes, but still, like accidents do happen, you know.
Right. Yeah. Have you been on Warner Brothers lot yet?
A lot,
Really?
yeah.
Yeah, they have some really cool, like historic sound stages and theaters and just places that like you if you ever do the tour, if you ever, and Universal has this as well, um, you'll just come across some places that you're just like, this is where they made that. It's like, yeah. And you're watching the picture or you're watching the film, and then you're like going back to that moment where you were in that soundstage, and you're like, there's no way this was
Yeah.
made in that space. There's no way. And you're trying to picture like, how did they set this up? How was stage set? Like, it's just a totally
What's
different experience.
crazy is that, growing up as a kid and before I actually got into film, and I love comedy, I love film, television. I'd like watch it, and I had no sense of, you just went with it,
Hmm.
and you believed, okay, he's in this exterior location, and then he knocks on the door, she opens the door, walk in, and you're like, okay, well, that's the actual interior of that house that he just walked into. And then to find out, oh no, that interior is on a soundstage.
Right.
This one view of the quote unquote exterior of the house is location A. This other view is location B.
Right.
And then, once I start getting involved and I start watching films and I get more familiar with LA, and I'd be like, wait a second, that doesn't go there. Like, those don't match. That doesn't exist in real life. But it's like, but it makes sense. It's artistically, it works better for the flow of the story. And,
Right.
but that literally is just made up, and it's not real.
Hmm.
Like just hearing how they made, what's that film that came out of South Korea?
Oh,
A great film.
wow! I just drew a
Think
blank.
of the name of it right now. It's where they go into that like really wealthy house, and
Like
then
eight different. I
you
say
can't
eight.
think of the name of the film.
Um,
Jesus. Anyway, everyone who's listening knows what the film's called.
no, it's skipping my mind right now.
It's like one word,
Bong Joon-ho.
maybe two words.
Parasite.
Thank you.
Parasite.
Jesus.
Yes, I was thinking. I was
Parasite,
like,
you
one
have
word.
this a lot of the action happens in this house, and there's like all this, for those who haven't seen it yet, I don't know what you're doing. You should see it. So,
Yeah, it's
you
nuts.
can't complain about plot spoiler. It's too late. All right.
No
One funny
spoilers. No
word.
spoilers.
Yeah, but just the labyrinthine. It's like the underground of that house. It expands like into this multiple expanded universe Batcave that then becomes like the home city of our heroes in the Matrix.
Right.
Zion. You go from like this, affluent home to a basement to the Batcave to Zion on the Matrix, and you're just like, what? And just all the different locations and studios or sound stages are involved to create this theoretical single solitary location. It's just it's amazing to see that like get created, during a production, but then to like see it on screen and have this perception as an audience member that that's this singular unified single world, and that everything you see exists
Right.
in that world and you believe it. It's just it's amazing.
I was just watching bits and pieces of Inglorious Bastards, which
Nice.
is one like these stages, these locations. Like, I'm just like, this is crazy. And then I go and watch a similar, well, not a similar, but like a different film, Wes Anderson's Budapest Hotel, and I'm watching this film, and I'm like, they made this thing on I think it was a $25 million budget, which is not a lot of money for a big picture.
Right.
And I'm thinking like the differences in, how staging and setting up just a story, knowing that you don't have the resources to create something that you originally had hoped for, but you still make
Right.
a phenomenal story come to life. And that's what that's my favorite thing about, filmmaking. And I think that for anybody who's like interested in going into filmmaking, like I got this advice from someone once. It was like, if you want to be a filmmaker, or if you want to be in the career of making films, and you just want to do it because you want to just be in the business. I don't know if this might be something that you consider, but like if you love to tell stories, like real stories, like true stories from all parts of the world, then there's something that creates that magic, like the ability for you to be able to put yourself in the world of these characters, and with a small budget. That's why I admire a lot of the projects that I've worked on that have been independent based. It's a lot of like figuring out how we can make this happen with less. And I think that that's the beauty of like just any piece of art, is if you can make this thing happen, even though like everything's against you and everything like literally can go wrong at any moment, and you still are able to make this picture and put it on the silver screen, as you said, like how is it possible that these projects even make it to the movie theaters or make it to Netflix?
Especially now with the pandemic, Jesus, anything that actually happens moving forward, it's like, God, all my respect.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Speaking of moving forward, tell me about Wrong for Right, because that's an interesting looking crime drama. It looks like that just got done under the wire, right?
That was
something can be seen.
Yeah, that's in post right now. That it's so funny because this happened last year, and it's another story about corrupt police officers.
Right.
But this story has purpose. It's a series, a TV series, and the story of these police officers they're the ones doing the right, but they're doing the wrong in order to do right, if that makes any sense. So the title "Wrong for Right" came from the writer.
Ends justify the means.
Meaning, like, if you've ever seen, have you ever seen a film called The Boondock Saints?
I have.
This is one of my favorite films of all time.
Is that Willem Dafoe? Isn't he in that?
Who is it?
Willem Dafoe. Is he in Boondock Saints?
Yes, he plays the detective. Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
I love Willem Dafoe, and literally
love him and his work. But these two brothers who basically are, take it upon themselves to correct the actions of like crime lords and people who go into the world of doing bad, terrible things to create money and greed and all these things. So the story of Wrong for Right plays into that. There's 4 police officers who are a special task force, and they see things happening in different parts of the world, not just like specific towns, but different parts of the world. And we see the characters develop through the series, and
it's in the bigger picture.
It's a bigger picture project, and it's really cool because we're taking it to a different country soon, and so it's going to be interesting to see like the true development of these characters being in the worlds that these stories are about. So I'm excited to see how this whole pandemic affects production and affects everything that's been put into place. But I think we're going to be able to tell the story still, regardless. And
the trailer looks cool. I want to see that film.
It's it's a TV series, but
TV series. Okay.
yeah, and so we're excited about that happening. Um, hopefully this year, if not next year, the continuation of filming that. But yeah, that's one of the projects that I recently picked up last year, and super
Nice.
cool cast, super amazing
Does
cast.
that have a home yet?
Not that's the thing, is that like right now it's literally like it's gonna go one way or another is where we're at. So
Gotcha. So you got the pilot shot. You're
Yep.
doing post production.
Yep.
You got to find
the home is there.
distribution.
The home is there. It's just getting everything at what you call in show business aligned.
And a light that's green.
Yeah, and a light that's green. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
There's the original green light that allows you to start it, where that's the money in the studio. But like when you wrap it up, you got a whole separate light. It's okay. Well, how's it gonna find eyes? How are
right.
people gonna see this?
Yeah, and that's where we're at right now with that project. I just picked up another project. It's a documentary about actually a filmmaker who has been in a lot of really big films, Suicide Squad, Jumanji, and a lot of recent films that like are very action oriented. And we're gonna go into his story and tell the story of how he became and chased his dreams, and became the person that he is today, and how the industry has affected him post something that now causes him to not be able to partake in what he loves to do. And so it's an inspiring story. What he wanted to do with it originally was he just wanted to inspire basically anybody who like wants to chase a dream and just go after it. This person has invented a lot of really cool things that subcultures have adopted, and just like he's known in different various parts of the world. He's inspired so many people in so many different places of the world, and he wants to tell his story.
Who is he?
He's a stunt. He's a stunt worker, a stunt filmmaker, and I don't know if I'm allowed to release. Yeah, I'm not know if I'm allowed to release his name.
Let's not get you in trouble.
Yeah. But he's such an inspirational person, and like when this story came across me, I'm super. I got super excited that he's even gonna go and tell this story, because sometimes, as you know, in show business and in filmmaking or in TV, people end up with these stories of like how they did it, or how they made it, and then they never get told. And I think this is one of the ones that'll get told, and people will be like, "Oh, dude, if you can do it, then definitely I can do it too." So it's one of those stories, and I'm really excited for that. We have another feature that's coming up soon. It's starting production this month, in July, and let's just hope that we're able to do things safely with everything that's going on with COVID.
Well, I think we have to acknowledge that we're in a completely different and new world, both with what's happened with the pandemic, but I mean also now, and I'm really cautiously optimistic and happy to see it. I mean, it's difficult to go through it, but it's if the liberty and justice that I take for granted is to be extended to everyone else that is alleged to be an American,
right,
then we need to go through this, whether we call it Black Lives Matter, or we call it people being in the streets. But bottom line is, we're literally seeing monumental changes happening in cities across the country and even the world in police departments that are
Right.
literally they're getting defunded to different degrees. In some cases, they're literally getting torn apart and replaced with something brand new.
Mhm.
How does that impact your filmmaking? Since you clearly have a history of having done some crime dramas, and I imagine you might want to do some in the future. And I can't imagine someone who loves Denzel and Will Smith and Nicolas Cage,
Man,
Catherine Bigelow, Martin Scorsese, Quentin Tarantino, like Alfred Hitchcock, like that, Jada Pinkett Smith, even. Which, by the way, holy crap! I just rewatched the middle Matrix movie.
uh-huh.
The middle one, maybe it was the last one. Maybe it was the last Matrix movie. But Jada Pinkett Smith like out Tom Cruise in that because she's
Oh
this
my goodness.
badass fighter pilot.
She's so
You
good.
You got this man going, you can't do that. And it's like, well, what do you mean? Oh, you mean I can. I've done it. Well, but I can't. Yeah, I get that. And then she Neo needs a ship. So she gives Neo her ship. And the guy's like, you can't do that. And she looks at him and just checks. I'm like, you're telling me what I can do with my ship? And then she ends up driving his ship, doing the thing he can't do that literally saves Zion.
And this is what saves them. It's such it's that scene. Actually, somebody told me about an actor actually just mentioned that scene because he rewatched that Matrix film as well, and he was like, "You got to watch this scene because this is literally what's going on right now. Like people are just being told what they can and can't do." And like this whole pandemic and with the Black Lives Matter movement, like these are the types of films that like we need to really be paying attention to it, that like free will and the if someone believes in doing something and they've done it, then like there shouldn't be somebody there to tell them no, because they know like if they've done it, then they've done it. And Jada's character in that scene is literally so confident, so serious, and so well like equipped with what we call the people's voice right now. I think that you asked how does this affect production with everything that's going on with riots and the Black Lives Matter movement. And I'm just so grateful that majority of the projects that I've worked on, I've just been super, super lucky to work with people that are super, super understanding. They completely get everything from a bigger picture aspect, where it's like you're not going to single people out just because of something that may be a stigma or something that may be like a specific belief from an outside world. Like when you're on set or when you're in the office or you're working, we do things at least from the productions that I've worked on, we do things in a way that's like inclusive and people's voices are heard. With everything that's as far as storytelling, these are the stories that like I love telling. Like I love dramas, I love crime, I love thrillers, and I do love comedy as well. But I think that if we're able to tell the stories that we want to tell, but with a message behind them that has a better framing of how we treat ourselves and how we treat each other, then I think that we'll be able to transition what Hollywood really is, as far as like the stigmas of like, I heard somebody on set recently was like, I'm tired of these stories of like, specific people dying in the film because they're always the first ones to die, or they're always like the ones that go to jail, or they're
don't look like me,
or
right?
they're always the gangsters, or they're always like the mobsters and stuff. And then I'm like, well, these are the stories that are being told because these are the stories that people are, telling.
I love the show Bosch, and I love that it's shot right here in Hollywood at
Mhm.
Hollywood Division of LAPD, which is literally the nearest police station to where I live.
Mhm.
And in fact, the police union, credit union, ATM,
Mhm.
because it's a credit union, that's where I go because I have credit union accounts
Uh-huh.
from film industry. It's like that's my ATM. It's literally inside Hollywood Division LAPD police station.
Oh wow.
And Bosch gets so it's like part of my neighborhood, part of my life, and then to be able to watch this show, this iconic show, and see that station, um, and that neighborhood and that geography.
Mhm.
I've literally seen, opening shots that, scan, the horizon of Hollywood. And like, I'm like, that's my building. It's just amazing. Now, that said, I'm painfully aware of the fact that that production got into a very cozy relationship with the city and also LAPD.
Mhm.
So they've got special access. So you've got, all of these, those interior scenes. That's not on a soundstage. That's actually inside the, LAPD Hollywood division.
Right.
Now it makes for some great production, but it's like I'm thinking a number of things right now. Like I'm thinking, not only would I like to see a crime drama action film or series with a Jada Pinkett Smith being Bosch,
Mm.
because I see like her cool reserve in that, archaic Matrix film. And, she's deflecting and doing 3-level chess around male egos. And but I mentioned it took another powerful black woman on the other side of the wall, that the gate that prevented the savior ship that Jada's character was piloting into Zion.
Mhm.
This powerful black woman, she helps this scrawny white dude who's in the exoskeleton trying to do his thing, and he did the best he could. The machines practically kill him. She pops up. She takes the final shot that actually opens the gates so Jada can get the ship into Zion and then hit the EMP, which then kills all the machines and
Right.
save the day. So you literally have on two different sides of the gate two powerful black women, one who's like buff and strong and very physical, and the other who's like very cerebral and wise and strategizing, Jada's character.
Mhm.
And to see that harmony and that that working together, like I want to see that. I would love to see that in a television show and a film. But my concern is, like, there's LAPD officers I've seen on the regular in Hollywood, and I know for a fact they also are members of my union, the Screen Actors Guild.
Mm.
And so I wonder, as a citizen of LA and as a taxpayer,
Mhm.
and allegedly, LAPD is to serve and to protect, um, but then we see all these unsolved crimes. We see all these rape kits that, never get attended to over the years, not to mention, black people and other people of color literally getting murdered in their sleep, in their cars, in
Oh
their
my
homes.
goodness. Yes,
And
that's not.
I feel like there's a huge screaming conflict of interest. Like, I'm not sure someone whose job it is to see that I'm safe. I don't think they should have a vested interest to be in a Hollywood film.
Mm.
They're going to have to make some decisions and calls, like there's just stuff that's just in the news right now of the latest, people in the entertainment business
Mhm.
who, either are being arrested for and charged or, strong allegations. And every time I open my Twitter, there's like a bunch of new, women who are under the time with some very damning, compelling screenshots. This is all allegedly, but it's like, okay, it's like a tsunami of allegedly. Like justice will be done, but
Right.
like, really? Like, I think we all could see what's going on. And these people who are influential in Hollywood, I felt this way. The comment gets involved. It went through my head. I'm like, you know what? when I get back doing more comedy, like that's someone I'd like to get to know better because maybe I can open for them at some point. And like, what is that thought process not going through the brain of cops who are also members of the Screen Actors Guild?
Right.
Where they're like, yeah, I think it was consensual because he's going to get me a movie part someday. I just
Wow.
need special access too. Like, yeah, it's great as a filmmaker to have access to the actual LAPD Hollywood division, the interior, but it's like, I don't know, is that an ethical thing to do as a filmmaker? Like, I got some serious questions as someone who's like a lifelong, from when I was a little kid watching Chips growing up. Like, I
Wow.
have an enormous love for the crime drama genre. I play cops and detectives all the time.
You
So,
do.
yeah. So it's a really, not that my pain really matters because like I'm alive to talk about this as the other people that are no longer with us now and their families have to deal with that because of the fact that there has to be a Black Lives Matter because we have such a corrupt and racist police departments across the country. But we got to fix it. And there's like some really difficult questions that we clearly haven't bothered to ask, but it's like, if we don't ask them now, when are you going to ask them?
Right.
And I don't know, we're literally watching the very thing that you document in films and you thought you knew what you're documenting
Hmm.
all up to the point. They're being transformed in front of our very eyes, which means literally every cop show in production right now is almost automatically becoming a period dated piece.
Mm.
It's no longer contemporary because it's pre 2020. Because the new departments that will emerge, whatever they are, they're going to be different.
Hmm. Hmm.
I feel like that's progress for us as a civilization. Maybe actually beginning to honor those words that Thomas Jefferson wrote as he enjoyed slaves.
Man,
But
the
it's like it's I don't know. There's a lot of uncomfortable questions.
I I I had a conversation with somebody today this morning, and she asked me. She's like, she's she does marketing, advertising, and distribution, and she was like, like, what is it about? Like, what's your why? Why do you do like what you do? And like, why are you a filmmaker? And I said, I think it's because stories have the power to heal sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And I told her, I was like, somebody's story that you watch on a TV screen or in a movie theater, like that story can literally help you heal as a person, as a human being.
Mm.
And so, you asked the stories, or you asked like how this impacts storytelling, um, not just in Hollywood, but in entertainment all around the world. I would hope that we can tell stories that can do that for people, that can heal. Not to say that one story is going to heal, years and hundreds of years of just corruption and unfairness and inequality and things that are being addressed in 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 the streets of Los Angeles and places all over America and places in some parts of the world as well. Um, but I hope that we can see that there are people who are making progress by changing the way that they act on an everyday, um,
Yeah.
every day, like just being. For example, like the conversation that we had when I spoke to you, and that call was made through Mutual Aid LA. We were on the phone for maybe about an hour, and it was just like you
Yeah, we were, weren't we?
and you told you shared like the perspective of like how this thing is going and how it's affecting you as a citizen, but also as somebody who's witnessed different stories from a different perspective, right? And everybody who I think everybody who's protesting or everybody who's with what you call change um, understands that there's it's not a matter of like color or how long this has been going on. It's a matter of like this is not okay and it never was, but like we're now at a point where like perhaps now we can begin what we call change, but also the healing process, because this is just, I mean, this country, I've heard people share stories and they're saying, things like this country was built on this type of behavior. And I'm just like, yeah, but that's just insane that it's been something that people don't like, have never ever done anything to really progress. You know what I mean? Like people might be like, okay, yeah, like I'm a person of color and like, I grew up in this neighborhood that was very difficult because, the police were always something that you didn't know if they were on your side or or somebody else's side, right? And
Right.
it happens all over the world, though. It doesn't just happen here in California or in
Sure.
Los Angeles. It happens all over the world, and I think that it might be a cultural shift. At most, I would hope that there's a cultural shift because, like, you're talking about defunding the police and defunding programs that are oriented towards, you know, what is supposed to be protect and to serve. Um, I mean, it's crazy. There's a film that came out. Spike Lee. Spike Lee is one of my favorite storytellers of all time. And there's a film called Black Klansman where he tells a story. He
Yes.
tells a story of a character who, like, and it's based off a real true story of a gentleman
Yeah.
who is in the police force and joins the what you call the Klan, and
Right.
he infiltrates the system. Like,
He literally infiltrates the Ku Klux Klan.
he's able to get through and like be around these people, and then it becomes a thing. It's like, oh, this is uncomfortable when they find out like who he really is. But they loved
Right.
him over the phone throughout the film when he has these conversations, right?
What does that tell you?
And I'm just like, this, like, Spike Lee's trying to, like, he's in the direction of like, yo, pay attention to this because this is serious. This is a story that happened way back when, but there's things that have happened before any of that. Like, you talk about Quentin Tarantino, he's got a film called Django. If you haven't seen it, Django Unchained.
Oh yeah.
This is another story that like buries and really digs into these characters who have the dynamic of they're just amazing individuals, right? The lead roles, you have Jamie Foxx who plays Django, and then you have the slave owners who are in the seersucker suits, and they're just very Quentin loves to do this thing, and this is why he's one of my favorite filmmakers because he loves to exaggerate things, but he exaggerates them to make a point. And I think
Right.
that's where we're at right now with everything as far as like Black Lives Matters is, we're taking it to the streets, taking it to the city and to the government and to like the police force, because this is like, it's no longer a question of like, is this happening? It's why is this happening? This should not be happening anymore. And I mean, I've personally known people who all my life like have been quiet because they're afraid of like being put in a
Oh yeah.
position like, oh no, I can't say that on the air, or I can't say that in this interview because
I have friends that don't want to come on my podcast because they to this day they fear retaliation from law enforcement. And they got stories to tell, and like if it would shock and surprise if for any human being to like see the I don't know, the stature, the power, like
Right.
you'd be like, no, that doesn't make any sense. Why is he frightened? It's like, well, because it's America in 2020, and
Right.
there's a history there, and yeah, no, he's frightened to death as if he was about to, give state's evidence against the mafia.
Wow.
And that kind of makes you go like, well, what is the police? And why is the police? And
Mm.
and then I'm thinking like, you see these responses from the police unions,
Hmm.
and they're not even trying to look good in any way. And it's the
Mm.
most disorganized, counterproductive. And then they're like this screaming advertisement that across America, we do not hire brain surgeons or advanced fighter pilots or mechanical engineers
Hmm.
to be in law enforcement. We hire people that are super emotional, not that intelligent. You can see it because you see these people that have all these decades of experience, and they're leading these unions, and it's like it's really patently obvious to see. And I say this, it pains me to say that because I want to love law enforcement, but it's like, if it
Mm.
walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it swims like a duck. I mean, I'm sorry, these are not bright people. And then when you realize how many confrontations happen, that it takes a cool, level head to de-escalate all the different parties involved.
Mm.
Or you think of like a bouncer at a nightclub. It's just like, that's who you want in that position. Why are we not hiring people that have this Zen, Jedi, super serene, super calm disposition, very emotionally and mentally strong, and they're so powerful in those skill sets that use of force is so rarely needed because they're able to de-escalate that. Or there's things like, a police with a gun is not going to solve homelessness, and yet we stick the police with their weapons and their military gear on the homeless or on those who desperately need treatment for their drug addiction, or people who desperately need treatment for their mental illness.
Hmm.
Or people who are working really hard. They love the American dream. They want to enjoy the American dream, but they're not being treated as equal citizens. And yet, every time I enjoy produce, I think to myself, someone in the Central Valley picked this.
Right.
Do they belong to a union? Probably not. I'm not getting my pandemic relief check yet, but you know what? I qualify for it. A lot of the people who picked my produce in the Central Valley, they don't qualify for it. Why?
Mm.
Because even though they work in this country
Hmm.
for Fortune 500 companies and suppliers for Fortune 500 companies, they pay taxes, and yet we don't grant them the decency of the privilege of citizenship, which
Mm.
they have clearly earned. Meanwhile, you've got bankers that look like me that swindle billions and never go to jail. I don't know.
That's very.
I'll get off my soapbox now. Sorry, Oscar.
I mean, it's the
I feel like I have a strong opinion about this at all.
it's so real though. It's what's happening right now, and I mean, this. Someone said this at a protest a couple days ago. Breonna Taylor. There's a protest that happened in out here in Los Angeles, and it was
sleeping in her bed in her own home.
And her story.
Wow, black.
She was sleeping, like, and she was pregnant, right? And I'm like,
Wow.
wow. And on her birthday, which is a couple days ago, we a friend of mine, he was like, hey, like,
They had the wrong house. They had the wrong house.
He told me, like, he's
war on drugs. They're like, the only way we can win the war on drugs is if we can, do a no-knock search.
right.
And it's like, but you can't even figure out the right house.
Right.
Like you don't. It's like, we don't want to be smart in law enforcement. We just want to have a big stick.
Well,
And we've bought that argument.
I
And now we're
think,
like, you know what? No, you don't need the big stick. You need to be smarter.
yeah,
Never be smart for you now because you clearly show you can't do it.
yeah. There's a lot of artists are not, like you said, they're not taking a side or voicing their concerns because of specific just outcomes and things that could be like yeah, it could be retaliation, it could be something that they might, it might be something that is not what you call politically correct. um but I think that it's important for the people, the citizens, basically, is like the ball is in our court right now, where we have the ability to really implement what we call true change, um, because as much as people who are involved with the movement and with everything that's happening, um, nothing's gonna happen for sure until we actually change, not just ourselves, but also like the organizations that are overseeing these types of power. You know what I mean? I grew up like loving the police. You know what I mean? Because I was like, they're supposed to be the good guys, right? They're supposed to like.
Yeah,
I have friends.
perfect. Hurrah.
I have
Sure.
friends. I have friends who joined the police force, and they're great. They're awesome dudes. They're awesome women and people of the police force.
Sure.
And I'm like, how is it possible though that there's like a counterculture almost in this world where we're supposed to be, we're supposed to feel safe, we're supposed to feel comfortable just giving our what you call rights as a human, or it's just someone that's alive, and we're afraid that even our lives at times could be at stake just because of the way we look, or just because of the way that you know we may be in a position that looks funny. And now there's that, again, stigmas. And you called it with maybe all it takes is just like being more level-headed, and ethics courses and things of that nature, just hiring people who are more in tune with like what the situations really are, um and treat
Maybe being around people who don't look like you, who
and
don't talk like you, who didn't grow up the way you did.
right. And like just treating, like I'm all for, like, I had a conversation with somebody and they were like, how can you not see that like they're being racist? I'm like, I see what's going on, but I come from the approach of like the world of like, just treat everybody fairly, treat everybody the way that like you want to be treated, right, as they say
Yeah.
in grade school. And I'm like, yo, I absolutely have love for everybody. Like I'm not gonna put somebody in a bubble just because they're a part of a different organization, or they're part from some place of the world that I've never been to, or whatever it is that we create separation. I think with everything that's going on, I hope that there's more unity and more people putting effort into collaborating with each other, just like in the film and television world, with collaborations and things that are
I'd
happening.
love to collaborate with you, Oscar.
And
Back to that appearance, I see you in that tuxedo on that lot. I'm like, that's James Bond.
oh
But
man,
I feel like it's a sexier James Bond. Like, you look amazing, man.
I
I'm like, I don't know what mission he's orchestrating right now, but I
oh
want
man,
in. Can I do a Felix Leiter? You know, like
that was an event. That was the Oscars. We did a thing with the Oscars, and that was really cool because and these are things that
some
like
people want to get an Oscar, some people are already Oscar. And you are one of the few people that
you know, and I mean, with everything that we've talked about today, like there's one message that I think people should know, like as far as like everything that's going on in the world, and you know, COVID, um, with the Black Lives Matter movement, with storytelling, with you know, healing, and the police and everything. Um, I think that it's important to note that we're in a place right now that we've never been before, and it's really cool because
Yeah.
we now have the power to really write the story that moving forward. And I hope people take advantage of that. I hope people really take the opportunity to tell the stories that they want to tell, and at the same time keep in mind that there's a progression happening, with you know, people who are collaborating. I really appreciate you reaching out to me and saying, hey, like, you know, I'd love to interview you on this podcast, because to me it's just the fact that you voiced your opinion over the phone when we had that hour-long conversation in the beginning, of when we first met, you know, and were introduced to each other. That just tells me that there's people who are listening and watching and who really care, and that's super 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 like just meaningful to me. So I want to thank you for
You're too kind, possibly more than too kind. But I
just
appreciate it.
no, truly truly, because it's one of the things.
I'm grateful to hear your story, and I'm looking forward to hearing, to seeing the stories that you've been involved with, producing and shooting.
Mhm.
Speaking of which, it sounds like you got some productions that the details of which are not yet ready for prime time or for public disclosure. But what do we have up next to see?
We have a couple of stories, a couple of feature films, um, one doc, and a TV series in play right now. And truthfully, like, people of just the world and the universe, no matter where you come from, one thing that I've learned because of like everything that I've experienced in my life is that like there really is like no limit to what you can do, and like anything is possible. Because like, you know, growing up, I never saw myself as like a kid who was born to two Salvadorian immigrants who came here during a civil war in their country, and you know, he was going to be able to make movies for a living,
Crazy story.
and tell stories. You know, like growing up, I didn't think that,
Right?
and so
Here
you
you
know,
are.
the people who listen to this podcast and to other stories that are out there. I mean, I hope that, you know, people know that you really can, do what you really want to do with your life if you just like decide to just do it. Because I'm grateful for people like you, Mark, and I'm grateful for people who really see true meaning behind what storytelling is, and it's to tell stories, and that means all stories. So I thank you so much for having me on the podcast today. And
Well,
I
thanks for agreeing to be on.
I
Oscar Armand, did we do it?
we did it. Thank you, and I appreciate you again, for having me, and for sharing your stories, because I'm just excited to find out more about you now, because I feel like I need to do. I feel like I've been talking this whole time, and I'm like, I want to know more about Mark. He has created
I can live with
he's
I
created
can live with that.
some characters. He plays police officers, but in a comedic sense.
We're gonna have to save it for another episode or possibly another podcast.
Sounds good.
Or maybe we might have to produce something. We collaborate. Who knows?
There
Who
you go.
knows?
There you go. Yeah, definitely.
Ideas are percolating.
We're in contact.
All right, Oscar. We did it.
All right.
Thanks again, man.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark.
Collaboration.
I think that's my primary takeaway with our conversation with Oscar. Maybe together we can write a better story, for the human race. Oh, Oscar's really cool. Looking forward to all the stuff that he's going to do. Looking forward to maybe he and I can work together on something. Who knows? We shall see. For everything Oscar, visit OscarArmando.com. That's OscarArmando.com. Like it sounds, OscarArmando.com. We'll have links to his social media on the episode page. And any links to stuff mentioned on the show you can find at MarkRomanEmpire.com. Twitter, still on the Twitter at @TheMarkRoman. We got Instagram. Yeah, still. Mark Roman Empire for the podcast, and Vegas 90210 for Lieutenant Frank. Remember that guy? To avoid missing out on cool stuff, join my mailing list, the Mark Roman Empire Census. Sometimes we have special deals and perks for those of you who enjoy listening to the podcast. This week's Sermo Maximus is do right thing. I wanted to make it just 3 words, so, cut some out. Sorry, Spike. I appropriated. Guilty as charged. Check your email for this episode census. Hey, I'm an emperor, okay? But only check your email for this episode census if you want to win a cool prize to be drawn in next week's Cards for Hero Tiers. Didn't get the census email? No worries. Go to MarkRomanEmpire.com, click census. All right, guys. Did you miss me last week? I'm back. I am back. We're all just trying to figure out the path forward together, right? 2020. we're writing the rules as we move along. But you know what? We've had some information. When you go back and you read the old texts and you watch the old stuff, you notice patterns. You notice things repeating. Let's try not to repeat the stuff that doesn't work, that causes pain. Can we do that? Please? Maybe? Until next week, it takes a busker. Remember our fallen buskers: Clownelyn Monroe, Prince St. Paul, Christopher Dennis, and Alexander Desser. Black Lives Matter. No fear. Hero tier.